Mad Skillz says RIP to Professor Ed Fletcher, aka Duke Bootee, the ghostwriter of arguably the greatest hip hop song ever made, The Message. Crazy to me that when you hear words like it's like a jungle sometimes, it makes me wonder how I keep from going under. Most folks have no clue who they're hearing. Those words were written by a guy who wasn't even in the group. Came up with the beat and wrote everything but the last verse on that song. In the video, they are rapping his words. He's not in the video. Probably one of the reasons I go so hard to make sure I'm credited for everything I create, because these mofos will write you right out of history if you let them. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for a song that changed hip hop forever, that they didn't even want to make. Mel was the only one smart enough to come back to the studio and say, I got something for the end of it. R.I.P. Duke, you changed the world, sir. Rest easy. All right, listen, man. It's and it's crazy. I was just listening to this song. I think I just posted that on my
This
like personal page. It's crazy. The first thing is, it's one thing that a person doesn't get compensated and doesn't get credited. But when you guys were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why was he not invited? I mean, come on, man.
I mean, Mike, and I'm assuming that this is true. You believe it to be true?
Yeah.
This is some of the most disappointing stuff that I've ever heard.
You know, a lot of things when you start going down that rabbit hole is disappointing. I'm working on a documentary. I'll speak more about it as, things continue to develop.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so many things that have happened in hip hop that really didn't happen that long ago.
It's not old,
That
Mike.
gets rearranged, retold, incorrectly told, and people just get left out of history, man. And I really hate that it takes a man to no longer be here for a lot of these narratives to get corrected. It's
Well,
unfortunate. And they knew who wrote that song. I mean, this didn't happen in 1940 or something. You
happened
kn-
the year I was born.
I just don't understand that, man. It's one thing, again, to take the credit from people that, you didn't do the work, whatever, whatever. That's one thing. But when it's time to correct that and you guys get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, come on, man. Like,
Well, this
what are we doing?
well, this is what I'm saying when I say it's one of the most disappointing things that I've ever heard. If you really know who Melly Mel is, and I contextualize it this way, Melly Mel's our first GOAT, Mike. He's the first guy that was recognized to be the best MC
Well, he
by
wrote his verse.
by the generation that came after him. Most of that feeling and thought comes from what record, Mike?
Oh, it all comes from that. But see, the thing is,
Well, hold on, Mike.
even
Let me.
go
He
ahead,
only.
finish. I have a whole lot to say about this.
So I want you to understand. This is a guy that inspired the likes of Rakim and KRS-One and Big Daddy Kane
And
and
Public
even
Enemy,
Kool
the whole
Herc
approach
and
of
Public
Public
Enemy.
Enemy.
And Mike, he is a direct line to the lineage of our greatness, and so it's super disturbing that the main thing that he's considered great for, he only wrote one of the four verses to. That's problematic. It is. It's very problematic.
So the Broken Glass verse, that's Duke as well, right? I
That's
mean,
the
based
verse.
on what's
First
being
two
said
verses.
here.
Like the first two verses are the verses.
Yeah, yeah. The hook is everything.
The hook is still Mike. The hook is still one of the best. Mike, this is still one of the 20 greatest hip hop records of all time. Are still probably top 10. Like, and I'm not talking about on a nostalgic tip.
I think it's
Come on,
honestly,
call me
I
a
think
record.
it's top five. I hold it even higher than that because there's nothing before it to actually
I
draw
don't think it's
inspiration
five
from.
anymore. I don't think it's top five anymore. But I feel you. If you want to have that sentiment about the record, I'm not going to argue
Well,
with
I say it in a way kind of like how I feel about Rakim. It really doesn't have a father. You know what I'm saying? Like it's experimental to that level where all of the hip hop songs before it were party rocking shit. You know what I'm saying? Like It's not
Money.
only like the first to really take that step in depth, but it actually did it incredibly well. And you can actually go back and listen to the song right now and be like, this shit is super relevant still.
Mike, the crop of MCs that specialized in the MCing that we now know to this day, they will tell you their biggest inspiration as MCs are Grandmaster Caz and Melly Mel.
Shaka Ra Speak says, but Melly Mel wrote the last verse, and that's the verse that people remember most. It is a record. You know what? I'll say this.
It's not the most memorable verse.
I don't think it's the most. I agree with you.
Verse.
And it's funny now because I understand now why people used to blow that last verse up so much. The whole song is dope. And honestly, I think that Broken Glass Everywhere is probably the most memorable part. People pissing on the corner like the,
That's
the first verse.
Right.
That opens up the song.
Right. So
no. I think that's the most memorable verse, but I think over time we were taught to look at that last verse, as incredible as it is, as, you know, for what it is. It told the story. It was first real storytelling rap on a dark level, right? But as far as like memorable and just putting the song together, it's a shame that this man didn't get the credit throughout at least my life that he should have publicly. And when that could have been corrected going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it wasn't corrected. To me, that's the part that's disappointing. You could blame all the other stuff on business or whatever happened or whatever space people was in, but by the time you were able to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where everybody was adults, grown, not in contracts or whatever, he still wasn't inducted into that. That's terrible.
It's just all sad.
It is, man. And my question is why?
Right.
Why?
Why?
Do people want credit that bad? Is that what it is?
Man, Mike, money and power and fame are such corruptible tools. It's ridiculous. It'll corrupt you your whole life.
I want to know why. I'm sorry. I have to know. Like, I want to know why.
I don't even know.
Because if all of these things are true, if all of these things are true, why?
No, you don't want to know why, Mike, because you're just going to end up being disappointed more.
I think I've taken myself out of that. Like, nothing surprises me from this stuff anymore.
You think, Mike, you think that until you get even more disappointed and it unravels even further, and then you realize your heroes ain't even really your heroes. That's why Mike, that's why I've been making a point to hop up on here and be like, no, we're not like these other media dudes. I don't need to be no rapper friend. Give no fuck what no rapper think about me.
No. I don't, like I said, I don't want to say I don't have heroes. I think we all have heroes. I look more so at the heroic acts than the individual. Because, the individual is the individual.
As far as rap superheroes go, the message is Melly Mel's heroic act.
It is.
And he didn't write it except for a verse.
And an incredible verse at that. And again, I'm not faulting Melly Mel on this.
Not as good as the first two. No, it's not as good as the first two because now we're going to get technical. It's not as good as the first two.
I mean, you know how I feel. I posted this like weeks ago on my personal page. That second verse on this song is underrated as hell. It's dope. And you know what? Duke was actually about 30 years old when this record came out. So he was older.
He's past his prime.
No, but I'm saying he was old enough to really take in and contextualize what was going on and put it on paper. It makes sense. You know, and the fact that he never got credit for that, that's unfortunate, man. He was a professor down here in Savannah.
Mike, that would mean that everybody else's light gets dimmed a little by putting him in the light. We can't have that.
Sounds like that's more of a credit thing then, or just fame or something. I don't know, man. What's sad, man, is
sounds like ego and pride.
You know, and I feel your disappointment with Melly Mel in a sense where it's like he's the MC, he's a writer, so by association,
he's talked cash shit about him still being the greatest MC of all time. He better not ever say anything like that again.
This is the thing, though, Coop. If I'm an MC, and let's just say I'm Melly Mel. I say I'm Melly Mel in this situation, and you're Duke, right? And so, if I knew that you did all those things to put that song together, I spit my last verse or whatever, as an MC, as a writer myself, I'm gonna make sure you get credit for, the rest of this song that you wrote, not to mention the hook.
So,
And if I want to gas myself up on a battle or whatever, and people know that I'm this, I'm that, that's fine. But for this individual song, I'm gonna make sure people know, nah, man, Coop's nice too, man. He wrote this shit.
so that goes back to the integrity and honor of men now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so he's walked around treating himself like he's honorable and he's royal and still gets to be considered the greatest MC of all time and has gotten mad when he's not mentioned in the conversation. The fucking nerve.
I don't know what to say, man.
And I ain't even trying to, and I don't want to hear that bullshit. I ain't mean it.
Thing is, man, it's 2021. And none of these people have given this man credit publicly like that.
That's how strong the whole
2022, excuse me.
That's how strong the hold is. That's what I'm talking about, how corruptible money, power, and fame is. It will corrupt you your entire life.
Listen, man, I got mad respect.
Like these dudes are eligible for Social Security and they still haven't given this man his credit. Think about that.
It's crazy, man. And again, I just want to ask Flash, like, why? Why?
I don't feel the same way. I don't feel the same way. I don't. And I'm not about to sit up here and fake in front of it and give credit out where it don't deserve.
Well, the song is the song.
Hold on, how many times do we get on somebody like Drake, questionable pen? Wayne.
No, that's real.
Questionable pen.
I thought about that in this conversation.
Dr. Dre never freaking wrote any of his rhymes. How often we get on him about? Get what I'm saying?
No, that's real.
Like, this guy has walked around, Mike, and said, I still deserve to be considered the greatest MC of all time, knowing all of this. Like, the nerve, the ego. It's like obnoxiously large for you to say something like that with this type of thing sitting right here.
I want somebody to come out and at least say that this isn't true. Right. But other than that,
I have a feeling this has been under wraps like this so long that if somebody were to say that, that's when the real smoke would start.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the real smoke would start if somebody did that. Because I'm going to be honest with you. Like, if I'm Duke, I'm just going to tell you how I am. Like, I'm a little different now, but who I used to be, if that's my move, I'm about to extort the fuck out of you for the rest of my life and make you my bitch.
Well, unfortunately, man, Duke's no longer here. He passed away last year and, passed away January, 16th of 2021.
20 G's every week, nigga.
And so the thing is, man, it's like, how many of these stories do we have out here in hip hop that have been suppressed? And how many people are still alive to be able to tell where things really came from and actually talk about their contributions? That's the part that I find disturbing. The fact that this is something that happened in our lifetime and the truth of it and the history of it has been distorted and twisted so much. This could have been rectified in like 1990, 1988. You know what I'm saying? Like
85, Mike.
85, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, but even I'll give them that grace period where they went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That man was alive and well and still teaching in Savannah, and you didn't call him up and be like, look, man, I know we done went through whatever. Come be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mike, are you familiar with the phraseology fruit from a poisonous tree in criminal justice?
Yeah.
Between Africa and Bambaataa and Melly Mel right now, I'm so disappointed. Fruit from poisonous trees.
Well, it's a foundation. You can't change those things. But again, I think even in that,
Mike, we got like our forefathers, we got a fucking pedophile on one side, and we got another dude over here whose ego is so big he thinks he's the greatest MC of all time, and he didn't even write it.
Well, see, the thing is, man, I think there's a lot of other moving parts that don't get the credit that they deserve, too. That's what I get from this Duke situation, where how many Dukes is there out there when it comes to hip-hop and its origins? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people who aren't really getting their just due. And we look at this whole thing in its origins like it was just, three major players. But let's look at this whole hip-hop thing, man. As big as this thing became, it's bigger than that. It was a huge collective. And certain people clearly aren't getting the credit that they deserve. who are walking around here able to tell their story. You ever heard of Cornbread out of Philly? The graffiti artist? He was the first graffiti artist, and he doesn't get the credit for it. He's alive and well. He's 69 years old. Nobody talks to him. Shit is crazy. And so, I forgot the graffiti artist in New York who gets all the credit for, spreading graffiti around in like 71, 72, whatever. He did some iconic things, but he got it from Cornbread in Philly. And that man needs to be acknowledged while he's alive and able to tell his side of his historic story. This man started graffiti, man.
I want you to understand, people's ego and pride is so big in this that they can't take a moment out of all the accolades that they've been getting for decades to just say, hey, I had help. And so for me, like when you dealing with somebody like that, to me, I don't got no feelings for you, and I ain't about to give you none. I'm about to give you the business, and you're not about to get no respect. Like men who deal in matters respectfully deserve respect, and men who do not do not. So what he did was classify himself as somebody who lacks integrity, and he has too much pride and ego to circumvent them things, even at his advanced age, to do the right thing. I do not respect that, and I will never, and I'm not about to condone it. He officially is a clown to me.
Well, we'll leave it at that.
I don't care if he wrote the last verse or not. Run tell that. Go get that real man who wrote the first 3 verses and the best verses on that song, the credit he deserves. You can go sit your old ass down somewhere.
But even at this point, though, Coop, Duke's no longer here. I think they've run the clock out to give him the credit.
That's the part that's eating.
Now I don't want to hear it. You know what I'm saying? Now I
don't even want to hear the message. You get what I'm saying about?
Well, I want to hear the message, but
I want to hear, but I'm never gonna feel the same when I listen to it, because I always thought that this was the first great mic performance by our first great MC, and it's a fucking lie.
Bagger Jones says, are you guys still doing the Jay-Z Nas verses with Rap Roundtable? Yeah, I spoke with them a couple days ago. We're just trying to get our times and all that together. We're definitely going to keep y'all updated and make that happen. Listen.
My ESCO list is frightening right now.
Spencer Overtone says, Mel talked about it. Okay, I'm going to look into that. You know what? Again, I think Coop's taking this from another point. My first thought was Flash.
He didn't talk about it the way that he put himself on Front Street and talked about how great he was. He never did that, because I heard him so many times growing up talk about how great he was, how important the message was, how he doesn't get the respect he deserves. I've heard that so many times for him. Never heard this story come out of his mouth. I bet you there might be one interview, but I bet you I can show you about 30, 40
you're right.
Whole life. This dude talking about how fucking great he is. Give a fuck about one interview, nigga.